Hi everyone, this is Jono Bacon. I hope you're all safe and well. Now in this Q&A, we're going to talk about what do you do when you get furloughed? How do you find a new job? And also, how do you do this while you're still planning on setting up your own business? Let's get to it. Alrighty, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me. Now in these Q&A videos, this is where I answer questions from my members. And don't forget that membership is completely free. This is where I'll send you tips, tricks, recommendations, best practices, offers, free training, goodies, and all kinds of good stuff to help you build amazing, amazing communities, okay? If you want to sign up completely free, click the button up there, or you can click the link in the video description below. So the question that I've got in this video comes from Dylan. Thank you, Dylan, for sending over a question. And Dylan asks, I think my biggest concern right now is employment. I've been furloughed from my job and I'm scrambling to find another day job that can support me while I build up a business that will eventually become my main job. But it's just too difficult to do in the current landscape. Now, as I record this video, we're in the midst of COVID-19, this global pandemic, okay? And I think that's one of the reasons why Dylan's probably been furloughed and struggling a little bit. So, you know, first of all, hats off to you, Dylan. I hope you're okay and safe and well and you find something. But this is an unprecedented time right now. So there's so much I want to get into in this answer. The first thing is I want to talk about the lens in which we look at things when we go through difficult times. I think we can all identify what it's like to be in between jobs like that, whether you've been furloughed, whether you've been fired, whether you're quitting your job, whether you were made redundant, whatever it might be. It's an uncomfortable time because you feel vulnerable and exposed because you need to pay your bills, you need to feed yourself, you need to feed your family, you need to do all these different things, okay? It can be really unsettling, especially when there's a global pandemic. But one of the things I've learned is that the way in which we look at the world massively influences the feeling of the world around us. And let me give you an example of this. So some years ago, when I decided to quit a job and start my own consulting practice, I was honestly pretty scared. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was nervous about failure. I didn't know whether I had the skills to be able to do this effectively. There was a lot of anxiety going on. And I kind of realized at that point that I experienced anxiety. It was not something I'd really acknowledged in myself, you know, because I came from Northern England. And in Northern England, we don't have anxiety. Pull your bloody self together, Jono. All that kind of bollocks, okay? So, it was a stressful time, and I read this book called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, and it's an absolutely fabulous book. And it basically talks about that in every obstacle, there is a little gem of insight, of wisdom, of opportunity. There's something in there that's valuable. And I could not agree more with his view. And it really started teaching me a lot about Stoicism, which is this ancient philosophy around kind of how we approach difficult things, and that we're able to train our brains into taking a very pragmatic, almost unemotional view of the world. And I actually think it's a really, really valuable thing for people to focus on. So definitely check out Stoicism and definitely check out The Obstacle is the Way. But I think being able to look at the world through that lens is really important, because otherwise we'll let the anxiety take over. And that can be the worst thing that can happen in these kinds of situations. Now, in this answer, I want to break it into two pieces, because you mentioned two things in your question. One is getting a new job, like after the furloughing. And then the second piece is you mentioned starting your new business, right? And getting that going. So I want to break it into those two areas, because I think they can happen at the same time. Now, in terms of getting a new job, the first thing I would definitely recommend you do is go and redo your resume from scratch, okay? When I've hired people, and I've hired people for my clients, I've hired people when I've worked as a full-time employee for a business and not a consultant, it's amazing how many people just don't represent themselves very well. And your resume is one of the first impressions you get to make, okay? It's got to be really strong. Now, this is the thing I want to really highlight here. Whenever we read any document, right, so imagine this is your resume. This is what we do. We get the resume, thank you, and we go like this. Okay? And then, if we're interested, we start reading. So what happens is we judge the length of the document first, and we do this online as well. How many of you have read an article on the internet? You scroll all the way to the bottom, and then you scroll all the way back up to the top. And if the text is broken up and formatted, and it's not just a big wall of text, and it doesn't feel like too much of a a mission to read that, then you'll read it. But if it's too heavy, you probably will say, I'll read that later on. You never read it later on. Okay? So make sure that your resume is ordered into logical sections, that it provides the most critical elements about what you're looking for. And importantly, the opening paragraph is the most critical piece of your resume. This is the most important piece, because that's the thing that they're going to read first, and that's got to grab them. They've got to be able to understand you, why you're valuable, what your secret sauce is, what's exciting about what you do, and doing it in a way that isn't completely overwhelmed by ego. Okay, if you come across as some self-indulgent asshole, it's just not a good look. Okay, so definitely focus on that. Okay, and I actually have a resume template. Dylan, if you want to drop me an email, I'm happy to send you my resume template. I created this and actually included it in a course about how to get kind of your dream job as a community manager, which I'll talk about later on. But I'm happy to send you a copy of it. Now what you want to do is you really want to focus on creating a short list, 2 lists. One is going to be, who are the companies I'd love to go and work for, right? And pick 30 of them. And then who are the people who I know who might be able to help me in my journey in terms of finding my next thing. So there are hundreds, thousands of companies out there that you could potentially explore, whether they've got jobs available and things like that. But you want a short list, right? The places that you would be excited to work at. Not everybody wants to go and work at some wire wool factory. You might want to go and work at a video production house or a tech firm or whatever it might be. So go and make a list of that and start there. It's better to start with what you want than to go down the path of what you don't want. And then also list out all the people you think might be able to help you, people who might be able to give you guidance on your resume, people who might be able to provide some recommendations for companies that might be hiring based upon what you're doing. Make a list of those folks. And then just start, first of all, reaching out to the folks that you've listed, the people, and then on the company side of things, you can start kind of looking them up and seeing what's available. But ideally, when you make a connection to a company, you want it to be through somebody who already works there. So let's say you want to go and work at Google, and you've got a friend who works at Google. Maybe they can introduce you to the right kind of team or the hiring manager or whatever it might be. But let's say you don't know someone who works at Google, but you know someone who knows someone who works at Google, then you could take that approach as well. So I definitely recommend doing that. Tap your private network, it's critical. Now, the other thing as well is, look, in the worst case scenario, we've just got to get some money into our pockets and got to get some food on the table. And this is where the hustle comes in, right? If you need to go and drive DoorDash, if you need to go and be an Uber driver and wear a mask and get safe and all the rest of it in these current pandemic times, then sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Okay, but just kind of get out there and do it. And another option could be, for example, offering professional services on something such as Upwork or Fiverr. There's a lot of people who are kind of playing in the gig economy, and I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of people who are increasingly hiring gig workers. I certainly do. Like the animation that you saw at the beginning of that video, I didn't make that. I got someone off Fiverr to do that. So that's the kind of thing that we want to look at. And they could be other good opportunities for kind of filling the gap. Now, let's now talk about your new business, right? Now, this is the one thing that I think people get really kind of stuck on, is they're like, I've got my current job and I want to do something else. I want to start my new business. I want to start my new project, whatever it might be. So what happens is they spend all of their time in their current job working, and they don't have any time to focus on their new thing. And then they get really dejected that their new thing's not happening quick enough. And then they just end up sticking to their current job, and then they're not enjoying life, okay? That's the worst thing you can possibly do. So what I would definitely recommend, and I've done this before myself, there's been times when, for example, when I started the training side of my business, I was doing full-time consulting, right? And with a ton of clients, and I'm very fortunate. I've never struggled for clients. I've always been fully booked. So I'm working with my clients, but I also want to spin up a training side, right? Digital training. And that requires building a course and setting up the infrastructure and setting up all the email nurture and all these different pieces. And I was like, when the hell am I going to have the time to do this? So this is what I would recommend. The first thing you want to do is sit down and think, what are the most critical things I need to focus on in doing my new business? What are the priorities, right? And just jot them down as bullet points. It might be setting up the website. It might be really defining who your audience is. It might be building a product. But sit down and write down all the things you need to do and then list them in priority order. And that's really important. We have to get the priorities straight, because if we don't get the priorities straight, we're not going to make any progress, okay? We're going to deal with things on what feels easy and comfortable. And I'm as guilty as anybody in doing this. Like, I love to do the fun stuff and not the less fun stuff. But we've got to make that priority list and focus on that. And then what we do is we build it into a plan, right? Create a schedule and say, these are the things I want to get done by this day. So for example, when I set up my training business, the first thing I needed to do was to build a training course, right? And my very first course is called How to Get Your Dream Community Job, right? And I built the course, or I started building the course, and I set myself a deadline to have that course ready by. And it was the 8th of June. That's when I wanted to be able to release the course. So I wanted to have it ready a couple of days before then. So, you know, I'm busy during the days working with my clients. So what did I do? I carved out time outside of my day job to do that, right? And this is, I think, the most critical element here is that you basically make the extra time where you can, right? So for me, I'd get up an hour earlier and I'd work every evening to pull all the necessary pieces together. And now I don't work every evening. Like, I'm working right now, but I'm not doing this because I have to. I'm doing this because I want to. I enjoyed making videos like this. So, you know, but the key thing is building a time slot into your calendar. So if you work between 9 and 6, right? You come home, you have a couple of hours with the family, or, you know, a couple of hours to relax or whatever. And then you say between 9 and 10 p.m., that's my hour for doing my new thing. Like, put that hour in the calendar and stick to it. It's really important to stick to it. And putting it in the calendar is the first step of how we stick to things, okay? So focus on that and build that out. Now, sometimes this can be difficult. I'm not going to make any bones about the fact that, you know, for some of you who are watching this, you've got tons of responsibilities. You've got loved ones you have to care about. You may have to care about sick family members. You may have to have 2 jobs. You may have other things that are worrying you. But there's always an opportunity to make some kind of time. It might be 30 minutes 3 times a week, right? It might be 10 minutes a day. I don't know what it is for you, but you'll be able to find time to do it. I promise you. One of the easiest ways to do it is just get up an hour earlier. It sucks getting up earlier, but that's an opportunity where you've got a good solid chunk of time. In many cases, the house is quiet if you've got kids, and off you go, okay? And then what I'd recommend you start doing with any new business, any new offering, is just start really simple. Just start small, right? So again, to make a comparison, because I think I was in a similar situation in some ways. I was not furloughed, but in terms of like maintaining a job and kind of doing a new thing, just start simple and give yourself a crisp goal and just start cracking on that. That's the most critical thing. And then gradually what's going to happen is you're going to build more and more of those priorities that you defined earlier on. You're going to get more and more of them in place, and then you're going to be in a good position to start then launching your business. Now, what's probably going to happen at that point is you're going to launch it and you're not going to get the traction you want. And that's a separate question for a separate video. But don't be dejected. You know, nobody gets the gold medal right out the gate. Everybody has to work at it. And remember what I talked about right at the beginning of this video, right? It's all about the lens in which you look at these things through. That's Stoicism, you know, that focus on this is not perfect right now. I don't have my new business. I'm not working full time in that, but I'm going to get there. And I know that my 1 hour today or my half an hour today that I put into that when I'm tired and I just want to go and get a bath and watch Netflix and chill out for a bit, but I'm going to spend the time working, that time is an investment in my future. Okay? So anyway, I hope that was useful. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. And remember, if you want to sign up as a member, send your questions over and get access to all the stuff that I send out to people, you can, of course, click the link in the video description below, or you can click that button up there, and I will see you sometime soon.